guys, this is Doug. Welcome back to What's the Hazard? It is Friday. What is it? I'm looking at April 22nd. Wow. My God, where did April go? It's over, practically.
Bye-bye.
I have to go out to Indianapolis. My son is graduating from college in a week, so we're going out there to, I guess, at least verify that this is true, that what he tells us is accurate. So looking forward to it. Yeah, man. It is Friday. I had a good week. I hope you all had a good week. It was interesting. I was speaking to a group yesterday, and we were talking a little bit about affirmation. As safety people, we don't always get a lot of affirmation that what we're doing is recognized or appreciated, frankly, and it becomes frustrating. I know a lot of safety people that get frustrated, like maybe I'm not making a difference, maybe nobody is noticing this stuff, and then all it takes is one person to come to you and just say, man, that was really interesting, or I liked that training, or thank you for what you're doing, and that changes everything. It kind of re-energizes you. So if you haven't received any affirmation and you're a safety person, I'm giving it to you. The work that you're doing is important. Keep doing it, whether people are recognizing it or not. It is important. Give affirmation, maybe to the employees. I think all of us crave a little bit of affirmation from time to time. So keep that in mind. So I hope you've received a little bit. I'm going to introduce my guest, and then you guys look like you could use a little affirmation. So
yeah,
I'll give them some affirmation. Todd, I've got Todd Longenecker from Commonwealth Electric.
Yep.
Your title is?
Safety Director.
Safety Director.
Yep. Don
Davids from ABC Electric, and your title is?
The Safety Manager.
Safety Manager.
Project Manager.
Project Manager, okay. So you're an electrician.
Yes.
Are you an electrician?
No.
Okay. You are the safety guy.
Strictly safety.
Safety guy who works in an electrical setting.
Correct.
Electrician who has adopted or at least accepted the role of safety manager.
That's correct.
Interesting. Very good. Excellent. So any affirmation recently, guys? Have either one of you received any affirmation from your crews or?
Luckily I did. We recently did first aid CPR training and got a lot of thanks, and this helps remind them. It's been about 3 years with COVID. We didn't get everybody in a room and huff and puff and blow on dummies. So,
right. Or those little Recessa Annie things.
Yep, that's weird.
Right.
So yeah, I did get a couple guys that were real happy that happened.
Good.
So
good. And
it does make you feel better.
It does. It really does. It doesn't take much.
Nope.
What about you, man? You look like a guy that could use some affirmation.
Well, I actually, it's one of those things. I do get affirmation. A lot of times it ends up being after training or something like that. But the ones that really stand out are, the times that somebody in the field comes up and is like, hey, what you were talking about the other day or whatever it was, I noticed that in the field and was able to make the right decisions because of what we went
Wow.
through. And, those are the things that for me really, because somebody saying, hey, thanks, that was a good training. It's like, okay, yeah, not to say that like every training's good, but, to see them actually taking that stuff from the training classroom and into the field, that's where it really has an impact for me. And yeah, that's probably the best form of affirmation that I've ever received. But yes, I could definitely use some more, especially from the top dog.
Maybe from the executives from time to time. I agree. Yeah. That's interesting. Well, let's talk a little bit about the relationship. You guys are both with companies that belong to NECA, the Nebraska Electrical Contractors Association, Commonwealth, and ABC, both members of NECA. And you two are both on the safety committee.
Yes.
For NECA, for our local chapter.
Correct. Right, for the Nebraska chapter.
Nebraska chapter. And NECA is part of an alliance with the IBEW.
Correct.
Here locally. And the marketing side of that collaboration is referred to as Building Omaha.
Correct.
And Building Omaha is a sponsor of the program. So I think in large part, we have Fletcher Safety Consulting and the What's the Hazard podcast to thank for having electricity, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, exactly.
Or do I have that relationship maybe backwards or something?
Pretty much all the same.
Yes,
Yeah.
Excellent. So May is National Electrical Safety Month.
Yep, correct.
That's cool. So let's talk a little bit about that. What does the organization do? Let's talk a little bit about NECA, talk a little bit about the training center, any of those things? Let's start off with that.
Yeah, we've been meeting, this NECA group's been meeting for a long time, and the whole focus is to empower our apprentices with more electrical safety and how to be safe. We do more than electrical. We've done silica with you in the past when that standard was being rolled out or updated by OSHA. We've done, PPEs type stuff. Omaha is building a new training facility, upgrading their training facility, which should be open to the students this fall.
Yep.
Nice.
And so there's a bunch of safety going into that. Todd knows more about it. He's primarily on that committee, that subcommittee to make that happen. But it's all about getting people home at the end of the day. They might be tired and sweaty, but we want all their parts and pieces where they were.
Yeah. Right. We'll take tired and sweaty.
Yeah. Exactly.
And well paid.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And but the training center and those kind of things, talk a little bit about that, man.
Yeah. So the training center, that'll be opening up here shortly. But one of the things that, we've kind of identified through our committee is that, as contractors, we're constantly trying to, get up to speed with training new people. What's their baseline, right? And the whole idea with this new training centers was an opportunity for us to raise the baseline of knowledge around safety. And safety awareness is really the big thing. And so along with their progression through the apprenticeship, we've incorporated what we're going to consider to be like safety mock-ups where they can go and interact and have some materials that are tangible to them, whether it's PPE or different, fall protection, electrical safety equipment, things that they may not necessarily get exposed to until they're out on a job site. But we're bringing that now into the training center to where they have that hands-on, and it's going to kind of grow with them. So it's going to start out with the basics of PPE, having that stuff available. They got a mannequin that's set up with all different kinds of PPE. We're going to have some things there that kind of describe the importance of those different pieces of PPE, from head protection, eye protection, hand protection, you name it, so that they can actually get a little bit of a training, if you will, on that. And then it grows into fall protection, and it grows into arc flash, electrical safety equipment, lockout, tagout, even, the medium voltage type equipment that, is going to be much more specialized, but at least bring in awareness that, hey, this stuff is out here for you. You may not know how to use it, and you need to have some training before you do, but at least you're aware of some of these items that are out there and what their use is for. And on top of that, we're trying to work it so that we can hopefully weasel our way into a little bit of safety training for the apprentices, because that's the one thing that we see is the biggest benefit is if we can help be able to say that, hey, any apprentice that comes out to your job site is going to have this baseline of training through the apprenticeship program, and contractors are going to be helping with providing that. That's a very valuable resource.
Are they getting
everybody
an OSHA 30 or something as part of their apprenticeship program, or part of their?
They get the OSHA 10 hours
in the hall.
The 10 hours is the only thing they get. We had discussed trying to get a 30 hour for like a 5th year apprentice. But just with the time constraints and how their class schedules are set up, right now it probably is not quite feasible.
Overburdensome for the apprentices.
That's a lot.
They've got studies to do to become electricians, and 10 hours is a good baseline. And
it is.
And putting a 30 into their classwork also that'd be tough. Intense.
I get that. Yeah, absolutely. But coming out with a 10, hey, they have probably had more safety training than a lot of the journeymen at least got coming off out of the programs back in the day. So it's much improved. I think everyone should have to have a 10 that works in any capacity, frankly.
100%.
And I like the idea of doing some of this enhanced training on some of these different applications and elements of safety. I think that's fantastic. Do we have any plans for May? I mean, does NECA, the local chapter, or does IBEW do any promotional stuff that you're aware of?
Not this year. I think the pandemic definitely rolled a bunch of that back in the past. We've done safety events and electrical safety, but with things changing a little bit, we'll see what next year brings.
Okay, good. Well,
as a contractor, we are doing some stuff.
Okay,
around Electrical Safety Month.
As electricians.
Yeah.
Good. That's fantastic.
Yeah, we need to, right?
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that we take it as an opportunity within our company to, kind of thank our people for all the work that they're doing. Obviously talk about some electrical safety, best practices, things like that. And then also, ideally, we take it as an opportunity on our job sites to, train the general contractors, train other contractors, right? Have a cookout and have some discussion around, whether it's extension cords, GFCIs, anything around electrical safety, just some of the basics that, other trades may not be aware of. We try to take that opportunity to do that. And I know that, it's definitely helped in the past, but yeah, like Don said, I mean, COVID put a kibosh on a lot of this stuff. Of
course.
But this year will be the first year that we're kind of kicking it back up since COVID and really going to try and make a push to do some stuff.
It would be useful. And I'm not here to tell you your business, but during May, Electrical Safety Month, you should invite or ask to be invited over to OSHA and do a little training for those guys.
Ooh,
because as a former OSHA guy, I can tell you that in the office when I was there might have been 2 guys that really understood electrical safety, maybe. And it wasn't me. I can look at the standards and I can say, that doesn't look like this. I don't know why that's a hazard. And the whole question, what's the hazard? That's the whole point of this podcast. I didn't know. I know it says you can't use a metal box on a pendant or whatever. I don't know why. I know that there was a time when I was with OSHA that we were probably misciting some of the regulations pertaining to electrical safety, and so it might be an opportunity for during May, particularly use it for some kind of promotion or at least, educational opportunity to maybe meet with the OSHA guys and do a little bit of training.
That's a fantastic
They don't
idea,
have
actually.
an opportunity. I didn't get to go to the electrical safety course as an industrial hygienist, but I was expected to address those issues when I was out on site.
Yeah.
Sure.
Let's talk
No,
about that.
I like that. Make those notes for next year.
I can, I'll get you in touch with Matt and Darwin and the guys over there. And I think they would appreciate that opportunity. I think.
And then maybe they'll say,
If we sell it the right way.
But we can inquire.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think, as far as IBEW and NECA and OSHA, since we all want the same thing, we all want that tired, sweaty, rich guy going home at the end of the day.
That's right.
That might be an opportunity.
All the parts and pieces.
It's
in
cool.
place.
And you kind of alluded to this a little bit when you were talking about what Commonwealth is doing, but it also seems we talked before we started the episode about leadership, management, commitment, and the importance of that safety leadership element and how difficult that can be in companies like yours. Can I think people that can envision a fixed facility where there is a manager or an owner and a captive audience, and it's a little bit easier for them to demonstrate their commitment to safety if they're inclined to do that, but it's easily more visible.
Mm-hmm.
What are the challenges that you're dealing with from that perspective in a business where your guys are out in the field all the time? You have multiple locations, perhaps, things like that. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So within Commonwealth, we have, 7 different locations. We're in 3 different states. And, there's definitely not a lack of support from leadership that to me, but, ensuring that that's visible to our people in the field that, hey, our entire leadership team is fully on board with doing whatever it takes to make sure that you do go home safe at the end of the day and that we're following the rules that we need to, taking the time to do that, not letting schedule and production be the only thing that's driving what we're doing. But yeah, I think, I don't necessarily have an answer other than, I would say that the biggest thing would be is when we are coming out with our initiatives and things like that, the leaders in your company would be active in pushing that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And even to like the mid-level management, right? So the way that our company's set up is we have our president, CFO, leadership team that are together. And then each branch, our 7 locations, have a branch manager. and really making sure that that branch manager is then taking that torch and running with it. That's like the biggest thing, because then they're more ground level. Now, then we have job sites that we have to get to, right? And really where the rubber's going to meet the road is having our foremen that are on site, that on-site supervision, to be feeling the support in that from management. But it has to be a trickle down effect for us because, yeah, our president can't be on every job site every day, right, to show that. So we have to come up with some creative ways to do that, and we have to rely on, kind of that dissemination. But I think the biggest thing would be is having visibility on initiatives, whether it's, replying to the email, right, saying, yes, this is important. We want to see everybody participating. Any of those things, those can really help with everybody realizing that, hey, one, this is getting noticed by the president of the company or the top dog, and they're in full support of it, right? So that everybody knows to take that action, and that it's not just the safety guy coming up with something else for people to do.
Interesting. And your setup is a little bit different. You're not quite as large as
we're a whole lot smaller. We're about 40 people work for ABC Electric
out of Lincoln.
And John's the president. I have no doubt he fully supports every safety effort we put out that I come up with, even though it's kind of harebrained some days. But like Todd said, it's really difficult when we travel around Southeast Nebraska, and it's difficult for him to get out to the specific job sites. He does interact with the foremans, our project managers. You have a project manager, and it's not like he's managing just one project. He might have 4 or 5 different projects going at the same time with 5 different foremans, and it's tough to get them out to the job. So like Todd said, it really goes back to the foremans being the ones that are, you can't be a safety cop. I can't go out to the job site and where's your safety glasses? They go, okay, here. Is he gone yet?
Yeah, right, right.
So our foremans do a really good job of doing that, taking care of it, making sure that's happening. But they also have time constraints with what they have to do with the paperwork, interact with the general contractor, the customers. And so it's a very dynamic environment. As construction, our job changes every minute. And if not, you're not doing your job.
Right.
So, you go in there today, and by the time you leave, it's a different place.
Absolutely.
And so that constant change makes it really difficult as compared to a fixed facility where, this manager manages this machine.
Yeah, I run this line. We return to this line every day.
Yeah, our crew changes every time. Our foremans may have different guys working for them on this project just because of where the manpower needs to be shifted to fill the void.
But that really amplifies the importance of having that one message coming down from that authority, whoever that is in your case, and
take care of the people.
And the message is clear and communicated and understood and supported, because I agree with you, specifically in your situations where you have multiple locations, multiple crews, changing crews, evolving workplaces. It is really important that those foremen or superintendents are equipped with the knowledge and the resources and tools necessary to make sure that we're working safely. And again, we talk about this all the time, that it's kind of a mindset, it's kind of a behavioral element. We're not trying to add safety on as an add-on or as an addition. It just becomes part of the fabric of the company. But that is a slow, gradual process. And and the rubber meets the road at that foreman level, at that frontline supervisor level in every plant I've ever gone in. I walk in, I talk to the plant manager or the owner or whomever is in charge. We are all about safety, Doug. And I believe they mean it. And then you get out onto the plant and it's chaos or whatever. And it's just because, that poor bastard that runs the crew has been overwhelmed with so many duties and responsibilities that it's not that they don't want to be safe, but they're being pulled in a lot of directions.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
That's really tough.
It does.
So let's talk a little bit about, I don't want to fixate on this stuff, but OSHA just launched a couple of new emphasis programs. You're probably aware. One is a regional emphasis program on noise here in Region 7, and one is a national emphasis program on heat. And you're probably subject to both. I don't know that you are.
I did.
I think specialty contract trades, which are electrical, are probably covered in both.
Yes.
They took a pretty broad brush when they identified the industries
Pretty
that would be
much.
covered, and noise is everywhere and heat is everywhere. So
Exactly.
it didn't take probably a lot of research to identify the, the exposed employees. Are you guys doing anything, or you probably have been doing, but just to share with the listeners, what do you guys do for things like noise and heat as electrical contractors?
As for heat, we picked up that program and developed a program 5 years ago, specifically to address heat. And a lot of it comes back to training our foremen. And even, training the guys. Everybody gets that bit of training, and it involves understanding what the heat environment you're going to be in. We have crews that'll be outside. We've got crews that have been outside all winter long, and they'll be outside all summer long.
Right.
Those are the guys I don't worry that much about because they're acclimated to it. They understand it. They have the water. They have the shade. They know
to take breaks periodically.
They know to take the breaks. The problem is when we take, in construction, we got to ramp a job up. Well, we need 2 more guys. Okay, go over here and get them out of the office building that they've been working on that's air conditioned and put them outside. Those are the ones that we have to worry about.
That's a great point, man.
It takes a couple of weeks for a body to get acclimated to the heat, to get used to drinking more water, to taking the rest breaks, not working as hard as you did when it was cool, and understanding that. And we've been working on that for several years now.
And the education piece of it, the awareness piece.
And that's where it matters is the foreman and the journeyman understanding like, oh, hey, Todd, you're looking kind of flushed. Why don't you go?
I always look flushed. I don't know what the deal is.
But, understanding to keep an eye on the guys and not wait to the point that it becomes an emergency.
That's good. That's really good. I think that awareness piece is critical. I think, again, this all boils down to empowering those foremen and letting them understand that, look, we take this seriously. So give those guys a little slack if need be on those extremely hot days. One of the things that the NEP has done is identified objective triggers. They're using the National Weather Service Heat Index. And so when we get those heat warnings on the evening news, tomorrow is going to be a heat day. They're probably relying on that National Weather Service Heat Index to at least forecast that.
Correct. And
OSHA expects us to be in some capacity utilizing that information in our program. Do you guys use an app, or how do you guys, it's just freaking hot, or
we're going to have to,
do you use like an app or something? Or how do you guys,
I don't remember what it was called, the OSHA Heat app.
Oh, you downloaded, you grabbed that app
several years ago.
Yeah.
And our foremans have been instructed to make sure they have that so they can get those alerts and warnings.
Yeah.
And try to stay ahead of the whole game.
One thing I would add to that is that really it ends up ultimately, as bad as it sounds, it ultimately ends up falling on the controlling contractor, right? The general contractor or the owner, because, we can say, hey, yeah, it's too hot today. We're not going to be working. If that general contractor is saying, we don't care, we expect you to work, right?
Yeah.
We have that inherent issue there. Now, I have seen that, we do a lot of work on large data centers. And if it reaches that heat index of, the feels like 103 plus, they're shutting down the job site, no outside work, right? Which is a great thing for us as subcontractors to have that support from the general contractor saying that, nope, hey, it's too hot for anybody to be working outside, even if you are trying to stay hydrated, even if you are getting some rest and shade, because it's too dangerous.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah. And that's where, the other thing that, we talked about education a little bit. One of the things that I focus on when we're training our people on this is be aware of your own body, right? If you're waiting until you're thirsty to take a drink, you're behind the 8 ball, right? And then also think about what you did the night before, right? Did you go out to the bars with your buddies until 10 o'clock at night? And
they probably can't remember if they did that.
Right, exactly.
Right, exactly.
But that there is putting you behind the 8 ball, right?
Yeah. And I was 10 o'clock at night seems like a pretty
that was pretty reasonable.
That's pretty mature, actually. Yeah,
I don't know that that's going to be.
I don't
the
remember ever leaving the bar at 10 o'clock.
But it's some of those real world things to get them thinking about themselves, right?
Definitely.
And noticing what's going on in their body, because the foreman, albeit they may be saying, hey, you need to take a break. We're going to take a break every hour. and drink some water. But if that person decides on their break that they're, okay, I'll have a couple of sips and I'm back to work because I don't feel thirsty, well, they're just going to continue to set themselves back. And so being aware of that and being proactive about it. And the other thing is not just only choosing water, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or not just only choosing Gatorade or some energy drink or whatever, right? Because if you only do water, you're going to deplete the electrolytes. You can still get into a form of heat exhaustion from depleting all the electrolytes in your body to where you can faint and pass out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you want to do a little bit of a mixture of both, right? Predominantly water, and then mix in that electrolyte drink so that you're replenishing those, because as we know in Nebraska and in the Midwest, it's going to get to 95 degrees and 100% humidity.
Right.
At least it's going to
Soon.
feel like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to be eating the air, and that's where we're going to be losing all of that fluid. We need to replenish that and do that in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think that industry, that electrolyte replenishment industry, I mean, I think there are electrolytes in my smart water.
Yep.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you smarter in my experience, but I think it does replenish electrolytes. And I know they make the little packets, LMNT element. I think the acronym is fairly highly recommended.
Yep.
Electrolyte replacement supplement, Squencher, all sorts of things. But I think I'm a little concerned about this particular emphasis on ocean. I think heat is obviously important and dangerous, but this is the ultimate personal responsibility issue.
And it's so subjective.
And so, yes, individual and subjective. So as long as the foremen are educated and they understand that as their employees are needing water, rest, shade, breaks, medical attention, whatever that is, I think a lot of this goes to the employee. As you said, you need to drink even when you're not thirsty. You need to notify the boss when you're not feeling right. You need to be honest and forthcoming. And I don't feel so good, so I'm going to go sit in my truck, air conditioning for 4 hours. I mean, this one is interesting to me.
Balance.
It is a balance. And this, for people that have not read this is a general duty issue. There is no regulation at this point for heat.
Correct. Right.
So if OSHA has a concern, and they are going to be, in my experience and my understanding, they're going to be stalking you all once the heat index reaches that point. I mean, the document, the emphasis program, identifies those days when we were under these heat warnings for OSHA to go out and make inspections. And here in Region 7, here in Omaha specifically, all the guys live in Omaha. If you work in Omaha or Lincoln and it's a heat index day, they're going to be out driving around and probably visiting sites. So I hope everybody understands that it's not an easily targeted, they can go out to some fixed facilities where they know there's going to be heat, foundries and, kilns and, those kind of things. But I think in large part, it's just going to be construction, outdoors in the sun.
Yep.
And,
and another thing that we do, and our crews just inherently do, is when we get to the dead heat of summer, it is, hey, we're going to start. Is everybody good with starting at 6 and getting done a little bit early, where that peak heat of the day is in that, later afternoon, so that we can do that. And, we do work down in Arizona, and in Arizona, you're talking 115, 120 degree heat without the heat index. Right. And so those guys will actually start at, 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning as soon as they possibly can, to not have to work in the heat. And so that's another thing that I think it's important for contractors and really anybody to think about is can you change your start time?
Avoid the heat of the day.
Yeah. So you can still get the work done that needs to be done, and then be able to allow your people to go home before that true heat warning takes effect, because it's going to get into that 103 degree or whatever the actual number is.
Flexibility.
Yeah. It's going to require some flexibility. And they are going to be looking. I think this is an emphasis at the national office level. This is part of, somehow they have contorted this into the executive branch's efforts for climate change. Somehow all of this stuff is interrelated. So OSHA is going to be really emphasizing this heat. I think, frankly, they started this noise emphasis program here regionally because they were looking for ways to address noise as a health hazard. And they don't have a good mechanism for that. So this is an interesting program in that respect to me. but I think they're going to be pushing this heat thing hard.
Yeah.
In my experience.
There've been, Nebraska had a fatality, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
A guy out in the field doing detasseling passed away because of heat.
Yeah.
And so it does happen even here.
It does. And I think the education piece of this is huge because as we were talking, this is a very individual sensitivity type of an issue, but medications you can be taking can have an effect on this. So people need to be aware of all of these possible variables that,
as safety pros, we need to stay on top of our foremen. And when Foreman A is inside an office building, it's air conditioned doing a remodel, we don't have to worry about his heat problems, but we need to be out where there's guys in the boiler house.
Right.
You don't realize how hot it gets inside a boiler plant at an industrial facility.
It's going to be really challenging. This is going to be really interesting. I shouldn't say that, but it will be interesting to see how this plays out.
Sure.
So let's talk about the other one, the noise a little bit. Noise is always interesting in construction to me because it's not like going into a facility where the press bangs all day long and I can measure that.
Right.
I put earplugs in, we're copacetic.
Yep.
You got, the noise is present, but very intermittent. It might be something that you guys are generating. It might be something that the other subcontractors generating. How do you address noise? To the best of your ability. Yes.
Actually, a couple of years ago, I started encouraging the foremans again to download there's a noise meter apps out there.
Yeah.
I don't know how accurate those are compared to anything else, but using your iPhone or
I think they are actually pretty accurate.
I've used them side by side with calibrated sound level meters, and they're pretty close.
Yeah. And so the point is that I've tried to get the guys, even journeyman foremen and apprentices, even in their onboarding training, is download the app. And if you think it's a little noisy, open it, take a look. And if that number says anywhere near 80, you need to start doing something. We provide, of course, like every good contractor, we provide hearing protection, whether it's earplugs, earmuffs, both, whatever happens. I've had people tell me, hey, these fit like garbage. Okay, well, let's find something that fits else. You.
Love that.
And kind of teach them how, if you can see like they say, if you can see their earplugs, they're probably not installed quite right. And so you take a look at them, and we, let the foremans know that, hey, make sure they've got these in there, because unfortunately, I'm one of those guys that wears hearing aids. I flew around in helicopters in the Army for a lot of years and destroyed my hearing.
Yeah.
And had I known more then what I know now, I would have done something different. But
I think we all say that, man.
Oh, exactly.
Because when you're young and immortal and
10 foot
love
tall,
loud things, all of those things. Noise is the one that screw that. I'm kidding. I mean,
crank that tune up. I like.
Yeah, I love. I used to when I was a teenager. I had a little crappy stereo. I would take the speakers. I would set them facing each other. I'd lay my head down in between them, put a blanket over it. Who knew I was going to be an industrial hygienist? But I loved music. Like, you'd go right to the speakers when you're at a concert, stand right in front of the speaker. I mean,
yeah.
My God, we have, and now I have one ear deficit. I have this ear where my wife sits on this side. So,
okay, that makes sense.
There's a notch in my curve on this ear, but.
Yeah, and I do have wife mode on these. You just click it down about 4 times, and it works great.
Absolutely. So we're going to be thrown off of YouTube. For having said that. We're not misogynists. We love our wives dearly. Yes. So, what are you guys doing? You guys do anything differently? I mean, so what we're hoping is that when the guys identify a noisy activity, that they might utilize the available.
Yeah, and that's the one thing is that identifying those tasks that they're going to be doing that are going to reach that. And like Don said, I always am encouraging people, hey, you can download the Decibel app and it at least gives you a ballpark, right? And if you're getting close to like that 80, 85 range, and the key that we talk about is that, okay, if you're going to go hammer drill and you're doing a couple of holes, okay, we're not really worried about that. But if you're going to be hammer drilling all day, or you're going to be, cutting in holes to the side of the panel with your hole saw, and it's going to make a lot of noise, and you're going to be doing that throughout the day, absolutely you need to have hearing protection on. And you let us know what you need, right? Do you want the insert type? Do you want muffs? Do you want both? We will do whatever, right? And then obviously training them on, okay, the noise reduction rating, right? Because if what you're getting is 120 decibels for whatever it is, right? Now we're probably talking some major motor or something at that level. But if it's there, then you probably need to have double hearing protection, right? So that you can get below that level that it needs to be. And so education, right? We talk about it within our PPE, trainings that we do for our people, making it available to them, having the foreman be aware of the tasks that, hey, make sure that, these guys know to be wearing hearing protection for this stuff. And then the other thing I always like to talk about is, to get at the younger people that, maybe don't realize that, hey, once your hearing goes, there's no getting it back.
Right.
There's only amplifying it. Hearing aids don't do anything but amplify the sound, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was in a training once that described it as blades of grass, is what you're hearing, what's inside your ears, and people walking on grass, right? It smashes down and it comes back up, smashes down, comes back up. And that's light sound, right? That's, call it something around 70 decibels, or 80 decibels. Let's go with that. But so if you just have, one or two people walking there, not a big deal. The grass is going to stand back up. It's not going to die. It's good. But just like if you go on a hiking trail, you've got tons and tons of people walking that same exact path. It eventually kills that grass, right? Mm-hmm. That's what's happening to your eardrums. And that's where, it doesn't have to be something loud to cause hearing loss over time. Now, obviously, we all understand the really loud things, gunshots, things like that. You go to a gun range, if you don't have hearing protection in, you ain't getting in there, right? Because they've identified that. And that would be more like having a bulldozer driving over the grass, right? Where it doesn't take many of those to start causing some permanent damage.
That's a good description of it, absolutely.
And so I like to explain that to our people in that sense, because I think that for whatever reason, people think that their hearing will, oh yeah, I listen to loud stuff, but well, once you get down to a certain baseline, you're not getting any higher.
You're not getting back.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting. The education piece is so important on noise as well, but the noise exposures you have outside really are no different to your hearing than the noise exposure you have at work. So, I think everyone now that at least shoots at a range or something understands that, hearing protection has become required, but, mowing the grass, shooting, hunting, riding motors. I mean, the problem is that this noise is so intermittent in the construction world that it's like, put it in, take it out, put it in, take it out. I think it becomes challenging just to keep some focus on that,
right?
Some attention to that. Do you guys, this is kind of off topic, but do you guys allow earbuds
for like music?
Guys can listen to music or listen to What's the Hazard or whatever while they're working?
We haven't identified that as a problem.
Okay. Do you allow that then?
Yes. We've got some use it for their phone, some use it for music.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't interfere with their ability to hear or hear warning signals or something. It's a little bit different for you guys,
dependent.
Yeah. But they're not, like a lot of the fixed facilities that I work with have prohibited earbuds, or specifically music, because it's so difficult to hear the forklift approaching, or it's hard to hear warnings and things like that. But your guys are typically working off on a job,
I think
project
the guys
or something.
doing the earbuds are primarily our service department.
Okay.
They're in by themselves doing something. Most of our construction crews, I haven't noticed that.
Okay, so that hasn't been a problem. You guys don't have any prohibition on that?
Well, I mean, we in general, no, our people are not to be wearing earbuds. We don't even allow, job site speakers and things like that for a lot of different reasons. But, it's one of those deals that in real time, if I see somebody wearing earbuds or something like that, I'll, softly talk to them, see if they pick up on, can you,
Right.
and
That's
do something
cruel,
like
man.
that. But, I'm not gonna get too upset if they only have one in, right? Because I would assume that they can still hear. But you get two of them in there, and nowadays they're all noise canceling and things like that. And it's like, okay, if there was a legitimate hazard here, like I don't feel confident, right? And so it's going through that stuff that, the expectation from our company is that you're not going to wear them. Are you going to get in trouble for wearing them? not maybe the first time, but
Right.
if we see that it's a habitual thing, then
Well, I think you could make a case that it's a safety issue to some degree, but I think really it's oftentimes it becomes a morale issue as well.
Right.
And this, man, as difficult as it is to attract and retain talented people and train them up and, get them engaged in the company, these are the kind of issues that break morale.
Yeah.
It seems so trivial, but I know companies that have pulled back on this allowance. They've allowed it in the past. Now they're pulling back on it. My God, you think they were refusing to pay the employees?
Yeah.
They just become so emotional about it. I know that there are the noise canceling type that they actually have a limit to how loud the music will go. It limits it to 80 or 85 decibels. I'm not sure which, but it won't go into the hazardous noise range. And that seems interesting. It seems reasonable that at least that would be part of it, because I can remember back in the days where I carried a Walkman.
Mm-hmm.
You put a cassette tape in there. You ever heard of this, Cam? You put a cassette tape in there, slam it shut, put on the headphones with the cord that ran to it, and crank that up as loud as it would go, maximum distortion and volume. And I thought I was the coolest thing on Westbrook Junior High campus,
We did that in Huey helicopters.
Did you?
We built adapters so we could plug our Walkman in. So
You'd listen to music over the volume of the helicopter?
Yep.
Was it always Creedence Clearwater, or did you listen to other stuff?
Listen to other stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah. The funny part was, because of that, it's an old story, but we were flying south of Nebraska and listening to the radio. We plugged in the radio. It happened to be about news time. And that's when we heard about the Oklahoma City bombing.
Oh, no shit.
We were over top Oklahoma headed to Texas.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It's like, so we were actually watching cars on the interstate to see if we could find.
Were you around Oklahoma City somewhere?
Yeah, we were, at that time, we were North Oklahoma City when that happened.
Wow.
And then we got diverted back over into Arkansas and around.
Yeah, they didn't want anybody in that airspace, I'm sure.
Right. But
wow, that's
and that was
interesting.
because we made adapters to plug our Walkman with our cassettes and radios into
Right.
headsets and helicopter.
Right. Well, so let's talk a little bit about the hazards of electricity.
Sure.
The program is What's the Hazard? And I've admitted already that I don't understand electricity. I like electricity. I want to go on record as saying thank you for electricity and many of the luxuries that it provides me,
Right.
But I don't get the hazards necessarily. So, for example, I mentioned the one that I see frequently, I believe to be prohibited by the regulations. And that would be the one where you have like a metal fourplex or something that you've hooked up to some kind of a pendant. You drop it down, you plug things in. There's no way to ground that, I'm assuming. So maybe that's the issue. But is it a problem? I mean, I point it out all the time and people look at me like, why is that a problem?
Yeah. A lot of the problem with the using what you're describing, we call them a 4-square box.
Mm-hmm.
They have knockouts in them. They're removable.
Knockouts,
And
yeah.
those can get knocked into the electricity inside. And if it's
Mhm.
not grounded properly, that item becomes energized
Mm-hmm.
and you touch it, current goes from your hand through down your foot into
You
whatever
become
else.
what's grounded.
You
Mhm.
become the ground. And
Right. The path to ground, part of the
kills
circuit.
you, and it hurts the whole time you die.
Yeah, that doesn't sound
that's-
good.
No, it's.
But that is what
it's
we're
not good.
trying to prevent, right? We're trying to prevent contact with a conductor that allows the electricity to pass through us to ground,
Right.
typically.
Yep.
Yeah,
Or,
absolutely.
Yeah, to complete the circuit,
Complete this
whether it's
circuit.
to ground or just back through the other wiring systems. You
Right.
just don't want to become part of that circuit.
Mhm. Okay.
And so we do that through, PPE training, having rubber gloves with leathers over them. And we do it with meters so we can see if it's actually energized or not.
Are either of you willing to explain to me why the bird on the wire doesn't get zapped?
Because it's not grounded.
Okay.
And
There's
it's on
no
one
path to
phase.
ground.
It's not grounded. And if it was to touch another phase, now the bird obviously isn't going to be big enough to get to the other phase of the power line. But if it did that, then it would absolutely cook. But it has no path to ground. You could have a human being hanging up on a power line. You're going to be just fine.
On that one phase, that
on just
individual
one
phase. My feet aren't dangling onto the next phase or something.
No, exactly. Yeah. And that's,
As long as you only touch one thing, you're okay.
Okay.
yes, correct.
Okay,
One
so
phase
that-
at a time.
That goes back to the complete the circuit path to ground
Right.
issue.
Yep.
And
Interesting.
what Todd says is somewhat true,
Mhm.
on a true medium voltage or high voltage power line. If you were hanging like this, you would get shocked.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because your hands are far enough
separated
apart
Okay.
that it becomes it. But if you're right together,
Okay.
hanging
Like
with
birds'
one hand.
feet, for
yeah,
example.
birds' feet are very
those
close
feet.
together. Claws, paws, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, they're close together,
Okay.
so there's no reason for the electricity to go
any
through.
other path.
I see.
But if they were far
Interesting.
apart, or they touch something else, that's
Yeah.
when
Okay.
it becomes
He's right.
a problem.
He's right.
So let's talk about misconceptions about electrical safety, things that we see that are problematic. Most of your work is new construction, so you don't always go in and see shitty stuff, but do you do remodels and
we
do things where you see
ABC
crap?
does. We do.
Let's talk a little bit about like
building-
misconceptions about electrical safety or stuff that you've seen. Let's talk a little bit about that. Or I know you brought some statistics even, man.
Yeah,
So we're going to look at some of the stuff
got
you
some
brought
of the
in.
toys and things to look at.
Let's start on that because
statistics.
teach me about electrical safety.
Yeah, according to the EFSI, the Electrical Safety Foundation International,
Okay.
their data shows that there were in 2020 129 people died at work from electricity.
Okay.
That's a lot
In the States, in the United States,
in the United States alone.
it's a big number.
That is a lot. But if you go to the National Institute of Health, they claim there's 1,000 on average die every year, both at work and at home,
Okay.
with about a third of those generally being at work.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately,
there's a
20%
fairly-
of those are children.
Yeah.
And children get into things. You know, I brought some things here to show that will help for people that have older homes and how they should make sure they have,
Mhm.
if they have children, they need tamper resistant devices.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're pretty cost effective to get put in, and they're definitely saving kids from, you've all seen the picture of the kid with a knife about to stick in the outlet, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is what prevents that. And we'll kind of
Okay.
show how that
Interesting.
works too.
Good.
But about 5% of the people that are shocked die.
Mm-hmm.
They say there's over 30,000 shocks a year.
Yeah. And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but many of these are electricians, if I'm not mistaken.
That's
I
true.
mean, electricians,
And-
in
and
my
whether
experience, electricians who have a better understanding of electricity and electrical safety than I oftentimes are willing to accept certain risk that a guy like me shouldn't take because they believe that they have a better understanding of the systems. And
Yeah.
I know we
Right.
investigated the electrocution of electricians and other maintenance guys
Mm-hmm.
who are not necessarily electricians when I was with OSHA.
Right.
That wasn't uncommon, and it wasn't always high voltage stuff.
No, it's not always high voltage. You know, it can be, one of the statistics is 30% of all the fatalities in the construction maintenance happen in a private residence
Really?
on the job.
Wow.
So those are the electricians that are going in to put in outlets in your house or replace the panel or what have you. And so a lot of times you see, people say, oh, he's an electrician. Well, when you get right down to it, oh, he's an electrical apprentice, maybe only a year or two experience, but
Mhm.
I'm the electrician because I show up in the van.
Mhm. I've got a truck that says that.
Yeah, I got a truck that says that. We talked about that when Scott Love and I were on the program in the past about what's the qualification of that
Mhm.
electrician.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
in a house, you've got 120, 240. You don't
Mhm.
have the medium voltage or high voltage that's, the 480 and the
Right.
4160 that's going to blow you up bad.
The industrial stuff or
Right.
the
So
transmission.
there's a lot of things that people
Yeah.
can do to
Yeah.
prevent that.
Yeah.
For one thing, make sure your system looks good. I
Mhm.
mean, if you look over and there's things look broke or burnt or scorched, get a qualified person in to check it out for you.
Yeah.
Whether that's in your office, in your home, or in your
Those little scorch marks should be an indication, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's kind of a
You would
no-brainer.
I see temporary cords like that all the time
Yeah.
where the plug or the female side is scorched
Mhm.
and it's still in service. I'm like, look, again, not an electrical expert, but this looks wrong to me.
Yeah, something here ain't right. So
Yeah.
need to figure it out.
What, as a non-electrician, what is the greatest misconception that maybe you had or have identified about electrical safety, man?
So some of the most, I guess, the biggest misconceptions from my standpoint are that that voltage, right, that low voltage, 120 volt stuff, isn't that dangerous,
Mhm.
right? Well, that ends up being one of the number one killers when it comes to being involved with getting shocked, is that it is a 120 volt system, because it's not the voltage that is going to kill you, it's the amperage on the system.
Mm-hmm.
So people being lulled into a false sense of security that, oh, this is low voltage, so it's low hazard. No, not the case. Most people will die from coming into contact with 120, 277, something that's relatively low. What I see within our industry is that once people our electricians get to that 480 and above, they start to have a little bit more respect for electricity. And I describe electricity as the fire that you can't see, right? Everybody knows to stay away from fire because you can see it and it's hot. It's radiant, right? So we can feel that. We know that that's going to burn you. The issue with electricity is that it's the fire you can't see. It's hot. It'll burn you. You just won't know it until it's too late, right?
It's like a burning ethanol plant, man. Ethanol burns clear, and I've driven up on burning ethanol plants before, and you don't see the flame. It's terrifying.
One of the other things, and this is getting more into the workplace, but understanding systems and arc flash, right? Arc flash value. It was a common misconception that, oh, hey, this is a 480 system, so it's probably just a category 2 in arc flash, right? And this is getting deeper into the weeds, but voltage plays almost no. It's not even a variable that's taken into account really as you're determining the arc flash value of any given system. Yes, and so for instance, we were doing work for a steel company, and it was a brand new building, had a 13.8 system coming in from the municipality. So 13.8 system coming in, hits a transformer, drops it down to 480, right? And so that 480 makes it what's going to be usable for the equipment that's out there in the field. Our electrician pointed out that, hey, how come on the 13.8 side, which is 13,800 volts, how come the arc flash value is like super low? 5 calories is what they kind of describe it as. And then on the 480 side, it was up to 165 cal, which is massive, right?
Yeah, there's no PPE for that, right?
Yeah, exactly. You get over 40 and there's no PPE, and we're talking 165, and that's on the 480 side. And what it was the most obvious thing was the difference in amperage. On the 13.8 side, we're talking 100, maybe 200 amps. On the 480 side, we were in the 2,000 plus amperage area. And so it's understanding that, just looking at voltage does not give you any indication of the true hazard. And that is honestly something that even electricians, they had for the longest time seen that as, oh, the voltage is where the hazard is. Well, no, the amperage, and then also, knowing that arc flash value of how to properly protect yourself, because we could have had a guy working in front of a 480 panel, and if he didn't do something properly and that blows up at 165 cal, that's like a bomb going off, right? And you're standing right next to it. So those are the main misconceptions that I see.
That's interesting.
But yeah, it's really just identifying that amperage is the issue and not voltage.
That available fault current.
Yeah. Don, you want to show me some of the stuff you brought in?
I brought in some couple of things, the GFIs.
Yeah.
When you're out on a job site, guys should be, if you're using power tools, you should be using some type of a GFI. This is just a simple single inline GFI that you can test, reset it, and that's going to protect you using that drill, or saw, whatever it happens to be on a damp, rainy day like today in Nebraska where the humidity was 105%.
Right. We're wearing the humidity.
Right. So, that's a single.
And so let me ask you a question about that. So this is for either temp power or permanent power?
Yes.
If you're using a hand tool, that's a cord and plug hand tool.
Right. If you're in an environment where there's going to be a hazard of moisture,
like that wet or damp location or just heavy humidity or something.
Right. You want to protect yourself.
If I'm can I use that with an extension cord?
Yes.
And where does it matter where it goes? At which
this
point?
Needs to be at the beginning.
Right at the outlet.
Right at the outlet is the best place to put it. Put your cord into that, and then you can get out. That way your cord is protected in the event there's a problem with the cord.
Okay.
And your tool and you are protected.
Love it. Awesome.
So that's just a single. The other box, if you kind of make sure the camera can see that, that's pretty much the same thing, but that's got 4 plugins in it.
Okay. Oh, okay.
You flip the cover up and you plug in 4 different cords, devices, whatever.
Nice. Okay.
And get that same protection.
All right. Very good. Love it.
One of the other things to bring up with using the GFCI pigtails is that if you have a GFCI pigtail plugged into a GFCI outlet that is already, you can sometimes get nuisance tripping. So it doesn't
and that's become really rare with the improvements in technology.
Okay.
Back when I first started in the trade 35 years ago, it was a constant pain.
Mhm.
But they've improved technology of GFIs, so
But-
they're not tripping as
But
much.
so if I do have a temp panel that has GFCI,
Then you're good.
then I don't need the pig.
Yeah,
Just
you
make
don't
sure
need
that
the pigtail.
GFCI is in line somewhere
Right.
for
correct.
that cord and plug
Yeah,
tool.
you don't need to have
That.
more than one.
Are there guys still using cord and plug tools?
Oh, a few.
Mhm.
Some of the skill saws, the
The
heavier
bigger stuff.
saws
I mean,
are-
almost like a core drill, or
Core
sometimes
drills,
those
you bet.
hammer drills and stuff,
Yeah,
or
I mean,
cord and plug.
We've really moved to, I mean, almost everything is battery powered. I mean, and
some of
that's
the
where-
bigger units you just
Mhm.
have to have.
I still see
power
cord
for
and
it,
plug tools out there.
but just not.
Some of
as
them are
much.
remnants, and some of them are just because there is really no useful alternative, I suppose.
Right.
But
They're getting better, but
okay,
they're not.
okay,
When you see a GFI, brought this in. This is what you're going to see in your house
Uh-huh.
or in a temp panel or anything else. The key is, and I have a lot of people call in and go, "Hey, I've lost power in my my garage." Well, you need to find the GFI. Well, there's not one out there because all they have are the standard outlets.
right,
Well, this GFI has a feed through capability and will protect these outlets.
okay,
There's supposed to be a little sticker put on there that says GFI protected, but
okay.
that doesn't happen a lot. So you find these, you push the
So
reset
somewhere
button.
in that circuit, this
Right.
exists, and
Yeah,
it's tripped.
somewhere in that circuit, it's tripped, and that will restore it.
Okay,
Just got to hit that reset button. Some of these they have lights on them, so you'll know when it's tripped. It'll have a little red light show up.
newer
So-
ones,
Yeah, some of them we actually have alarms on,
really.
and we put those in like garages or on deep freezes.
So you know if
So
your freezer is going to
If your
thaw.
GFI tripped out, you know your freezer is out of power. You don't
Yeah.
come out like I did 10 years ago, open it up and go, oh man.
You have a beef swimming pool.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
all the blood coming
As
down.
expensive as meat is, man, you
That
do not
was
want that to
bad.
happen.
That was a bad day.
I will tell you just a little story. So my wife and I, the house where we raised our boys, we'd put the Christmas lights out. Invariably, it would rain at some point during that season, and the lights would go out. The Christmas lights would go out, and the light in the garage would go out. And I hunted for days for the GFI that control it.
Found
I
in the
could not
bathroom?
figure it out, and it was in the guest bathroom.
Yep.
Exactly. I
Yep.
wish you would have told me that before. I spent
Call
days
me
looking for it,
anytime.
man. Don, I can't find my.
Yeah. We had talked also about, safety for kids
Mhm.
because 20% of these injuries, that's about 200 kids a
Oh,
year
yeah, that's terrible.
are injured with electricity.
Mhm.
So the National Electric Code years ago came up with what's called tamper resistant outlets.
Mhm.
So this is actually a tester.
Okay.
I can test tamper resistant outlets with a single prong. I should not be able to shove it in. And I mean,
Either of the slots.
either of the slots. There's
Okay.
little doors that close up.
Mhm.
Okay.
So it takes two and it plugs right in.
No shit.
And this particular tester is an insulated tester. So I can do with this on a live outlet.
Uh-huh.
But a lot of times you'll see when they're made, there'll be a little TR written on the
Mhm.
outlet. So,
Seen that?
they used to have black doors on white outlets. Well, they kind of got rid of that because people are like, oh, you can see it
People
ugly.
didn't like
But
that.
that's a tamper resistant outlet. So that
Okay.
stops your kid from taking that knife,
Being able to
whatever,
Get in there.
and pushing it
Interesting.
in there out of curiosity.
Love that.
So this is going to help
but
children.
those doors also make it more difficult for me to get that in too,
Yeah.
right? So when
Yeah.
I'm
And
like,
They
what the
can.
You got to
They
wiggle it
can.
around and make sure it goes in. But it will.
okay, I love that, man. Thank you
So
for
that's a
sharing
great-
that. That is cool.
Great little tester.
Did you know that, Cam? See?
There you
Man,
go.
Okay,
I love
I
it.
do charge teaching fees.
Okay. That's
But-
really cool.
So we see these GFIs, which are great, but there's also GFI breakers.
Right.
So I brought
Right.
3 different types of breakers.
Okay.
As you can see, they got different colored buttons on them
Okay. Yeah, I do.
because the National Electric Code also picked up what's called arc fault circuit interrupters for residential. In your home, newer homes have what's called an arc fault breaker, which if something's arcing in the circuit where it's not making solid connection, the breaker senses it, shuts off, and stops a fire from inside your walls.
Okay.
So they're real good, but they do make GFI breakers. This Siemens brand, there'll be a white push button on it, and it says GFI.
Yeah, pass that
On the
over to
front
the
of it?
guy that doesn't know what the hell we're talking about.
And then they have an arc fault breaker, which has the dark blue.
Mhm.
I don't know if anybody can see that,
Okay.
but they look very similar from the outside,
Yes.
but one is arc fault, one is ground fault. And you feel free to Google that so you can understand what it is later. And then they make one that's dual function, both arc fault and ground fault.
Mm-hmm.
And that's got a light blue,
Okay.
kind of a cross between the white and the blue.
And so these are going into new builds primarily?
Probably in
Part of the code now? So
GFI has been part of the code since the 70s.
Yeah.
And there have been breakers and outlets.
okay.
But now in the past, what's it been, 5 years? Or no, that's been longer than that, almost 10 years ago, the National Electric Code adopted arc fault breakers also.
Okay. And so in my house, which is probably 10 years old,
Maybe not.
I don't believe that these are present in my house. I'm going to go check.
Yep.
Do I need to upgrade?
I don't think so.
Okay. Is it possible to upgrade?
It is.
Absolutely.
It is possible to upgrade from a standard breaker to one of these guarded breakers.
Right. The problem you can run into is how it was wired
Mm-hmm.
with sharing neutrals and stuff that
Yeah, that's
you used to do.
yeah.
You can have nuisance tripping with that arc
Okay.
fault, because arc fault needs to protect one circuit. And
Gotcha.
things were wired a little different,
Yeah.
10 years ago.
I'm
As
sure they
codes
were.
change, we adapt and adjust to make sure the technology fits the need.
Okay.
But
This is fantastic.
most people do not. Like when we change a panel out now and upgrade a panel, we are not required to put arc fault on existing stuff, only new installations.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting.
I have the arc faults in my house,
Do you?
and I actually, I had one that, and as bad as it may sound, but we had to get rid of it because it kept tripping.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just put in a regular GFCI,
Mm-hmm.
which is going to protect the person, right, from being shot.
Mhm.
The arc fault is really for
Protecting
fires.
the
Yeah,
structure.
Yeah.
protecting
Okay.
your home. And that's really the biggest difference between the two. But that's the only downside is that if you do have a loose connection, now if you can find that loose connection, then it might help. But,
It
we
can
ended up-
lead to
we
that
ended up-
nuisance tripping.
yeah, and we ended up just switching it out because couldn't figure out why it was happening. We checked all the different connections. Everything was tight. So, and sometimes the GFCIs themselves or the actual breaker itself can be bad.
It can
right?
fail, right?
Yeah,
Sure.
it can
That
just
failure curve and the very
yeah,
good is
it
why a
can
bad
just
one.
it can just inevitably be bad, right?
Mhm.
Just because it came brand new from the
Yep.
manufacturer
We
does
put
not
brand new
mean that
ones
it's
in.
good.
Yeah.
A week later, had to go back and replace
Yeah.
them.
Right. And
But
so
they fail right away if they're going to fail to
Usually.
or at the end of their lifespan, somewhere in that.
Usually in the beginning, usually
Right.
at the end.
Is it important to have all the branch circuits in my home GFCI'd or just the ones that are serving like a bathroom, kitchen,
Code says any place that's outdoors,
outdoors?
unfinished concrete is conductive.
Okay.
Like a basement that's unfinished
Mhm,
needs to be GFI protected. Kitchens,
Mhm.
bathrooms,
Okay.
garages.
The outdoor stuff.
Yep, everything outdoors. Any place where you can get that moisture factor
Mhm.
that can make you part of the circuit.
Needs to be GFCI'd.
Right.
This is interesting because I see a lot of locations, facilities that I work with or serve, that they don't appear to have circuitry or components that are rated for wetter damp locations. And I'll tell you, the dead giveaway is they've taped plastic over them or something,
that's
you
pretty
know.
much did giveaway.
That's even a guy like me can see that.
Yeah.
And I don't know how necessarily to identify, other than going all the way back to the breakers or something, if something is on GFC or tracing
Well,
those lines.
If you're talking a 120 volt circuit or an
Mhm.
outlet,
Mm-hmm.
they make a fancy little tester like this.
Mm-hmm. What do you call that?
A fancy little test, a GFI tester.
Okay.
fancy little tester. Yeah.
That was actually the trade name.
Right.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
is
exactly.
the actual name.
But basically, you just plug this into the outlet,
Uh-huh.
and when it's energized, you push this button, it'll trip the GFI,
Okay.
or it'll trip
If
the
it's even if it's
GFI.
down upstream somewhere.
If it's upstream someplace, and the lights that are on here will go out, and
Okay.
then you have the joy of trying to find the GFI that tripped.
Yeah, but hell, you know at that
And then
point.
you know it.
It can also tell you if it's not wired properly, right?
Yeah. There's some
like
light
reverse polarity and
configuration,
things,
yeah,
some configurational
ungrounded.
things. Yeah,
So
ungrounded.
there's more to it, but they make those.
And where do I get one of those things other than just like sealing that when you're not looking? I mean, can I go buy those at an electrical supply store?
Home
Local
Depot,
hardware,
Lowe's, Ace
Home Depot,
Hardware,
okay.
everybody, any place that sells an electrical outlet will probably have one of
Okay.
those there.
I probably need to have those things. I don't focus.
GFIs, technically on construction jobs, or they're supposed to be tested monthly, every month.
somebody should be going around.
go
And is
around
that
and we
usually
check.
the duty of the electrical
Well,
contractor?
it's if it's a temporary system, our guys do it.
But the GC usually expects you to do that or puts that off on you, I would hope.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
no,
you are
yeah,
the one.
It's part of our policies.
Right.
And
Okay.
that our
Monthly.
foremans go out once a month and check
Test
all the
all of
GFIs
those.
on our temporary power systems.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Anything, any last, give me the quick on the outdoor cover.
The big outdoor cover,
Yep.
code says if you're outdoors, you need to have a cover over this. So when you're plugged in, the cord goes through the bottom.
So the lid's not just like hanging there
Right.
on top of the cord.
So you can open it up, plug it in, close it. And that way when rain hits, it doesn't get on your outlets.
Okay. So this is something that I see all the time.
Should have on the
They've
outside
got one of
outlets of your home.
those. It's plugged in, and then the cord, the cap, the top just
Yeah, it
kind of
sits like
sits
this.
against the cords.
Right.
Yeah.
They need to cut out. Are there like knockouts that
Yep.
you can carve out or
Yeah.
push
No,
out?
they're already pre-made to drop the cords out and put them in.
Okay.
They make all kinds of different ones.
And the
Better
code
ones.
says that.
Yes.
I'm going to be all over that,
Yep.
man.
Code says outdoors
it has to be properly protected. Yep.
Okay.
It's got to be designed for that use.
Yeah. I
unless-
get.
outdoors.
Yeah.
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 unless you're more than 6 foot back from the edge of the roof.
So explain
Like
that. Say that to me again.
If you're on, say, a front porch that's
Mhm.
a big,
And you have a big covered porch.
big covered porch,
it's way back by the
it's
door.
6 foot away from where the edge of the roof is,
Okay.
then you don't have to have that cover
Oh, I love this, man.
because rain generally doesn't come blowing in past 6 foot.
Okay. Interesting.
Magic.
It is magic.
Hey, so the real question is, do you just sit there and read the code book on your weekends while you're just hanging out? Or
Usually it helps.
how do
go
you
to
know all
sleep
these
at night.
things?
Well, I tell you what, Tom, 38 years of this, you kind of have a tendency to
You
learn.
have.
Yeah.
Well, it happens. I know that
37, excuse me.
people will ask me questions and I refer them to like the subpart by letter and Roman numeral and stuff. And they're like, you need to get a life, man. And it's just repetition. You're in there so often. And
Yep,
eventually it just becomes ingrained, hopefully.
Yeah, it's just
But it is a good point. Everybody that does this type of work, specifically what you do, or in general, what I do, they say, you need to spend time in the regulations. There's just
exactly.
I ask safety professionals all the time, have you read that CPL or have you read that regulation? No. Wow, how the hell do you know what you should be
Right.
expecting?
Correct.
And,
It's
and you don't know necessarily every bit that's in that code. You know, the code book's thousands of pages.
Of course.
Yeah.
But you know the ones you deal with,
Mhm.
or you know where to go find it. You know,
Yeah.
when I worked on helicopters in the Army, we had step-by-step instructions how to take apart and put back together a helicopter.
Everything.
But you didn't have to know it. You had to be able to find it in the book
Right.
and
Do
just
it.
do it step by step.
Love it.
So
It's
books
fantastic,
are
guys.
important.
Yeah, books are important. Books are good. Right?
I think
Stop burning those books,
Yeah,
damn it.
stop banning them.
Exactly. No, books are good. Hey, this has been really informative for me and for Cam, hopefully for the audience as well. May is National Electrical Safety Awareness Month.
Yep.
And this is good information. I think everybody is going to hear something that they did not know. I heard a lot that I did not know. So I appreciate that. Thank you for
Sounds
what you
good.
guy are doing. That's my affirmation to you.
All right. Thanks, Doug.
I appreciate what
Doug.
you guys are doing.
We
Yeah.
appreciate what
Yeah,
you're
you guys
doing
look
too,
happier.
man. Yeah.
Knowing that I appreciate what you're doing.
Coffee's kicking in.
The coffee is kicking in, man. So go out there and affirm somebody today. I guess is that
Yeah,
an
I
act?
like it.
Is that a verb?
Tell them thanks.
You can
Yeah.
affirm someone. Yeah. Hey, man, be grateful, be appreciative. If you are a safety person or you're in some kind of an adjacent safety role, we do appreciate what you're doing. Our intention has always been to make Nebraska a safe place to live and work. That's why we do what we do. So keep up the good work. Thank you, guys. Thank you to Building Omaha for being a sponsor of the program. We're going to keep pushing out content as long as we can afford it. So
Sounds good.
have a good weekend, fellas.
You
Cam,
too,
have a
Doug.
good weekend.
Thanks, Cam.
Thanks, everybody.
everybody.
We'll talk to you later.